Hello, welcome back. I'm excited to finally be able to announce to you guys that I am releasing my second book for pre-sale. It is the Handmade Padlock II in the Ancient Technique of Forge Brazing. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably been familiar with some of what this book's going to be about. I've been working on it for the last 3.5 years. I started on it really shortly after my first book came out. So those of you that are familiar with my first book, if you enjoyed that one, I really think you might like this one. So this book is the next step, like it builds off the skills from the first book. So the first book goes over a rivet construction body and a single bolt padlock. So one thing I did to kind of take that book to the next level, in this book, it took the patterns from the first book. So this lock's gonna look really familiar. Took the patterns from the first book, and I show you how to adapt that lock to be a 2-chamber padlock. So very similar. It's a little more difficult and a little more going on, but that won't be real familiar to you guys. The next thing is, in the first book, I didn't tell you guys how to make keys or wards. I want to keep it really basic, and to make it easy for everybody starting on the same page, I offered a cast key. But in this book, I'm going to show you guys how to forge a single piece key, forge and file it, get it all ready, and you can make a key for the padlock in the first book as well as for this 2-chamber padlock in this book. I can tell you how to, or I tell you in the book how to adapt that. I also go over basic warding, so that's like the little slots in the keys and the little security fixtures inside the lock. So again, upping the difficulty of that one from the first book just a little bit. And then the main thing that this book goes over is what is called a half-heart padlock. Again, if you've been following me on Instagram, you've probably seen me messing around with these for a while now. I did a lot of research and experimentation on how to make these. I'm super proud of this book, and that's not to say I'm not with my first one. I'm very proud of my first one, but being that this is my second book, I feel like I have grown not only as an author, but also a researcher. So I go super heavy into researching the stuff for this book. So there's a lot of information from historical texts when I could find them. Some of that stuff is a little scarce to find, and a lot of it is in other languages. So I've had to go through and work on translating a lot of that information for you guys to give you sort of what's pertinent towards what I'm writing about in this book. The really cool thing about half-heart padlocks is that there actually was, I don't want to say a lot of information, but there's a good chunk of information that was published historically. So I include a lot of that kind of stuff, break down kind of what they described for some of this stuff, some of the processes even, but also what I saw. So I looked at a lot of antiques. I went to a few different museums, looked at stuff they had in collections, bought a couple of my own locks. So just all the stuff I could find, any information I could find anywhere, really breaking down how a half-heart padlock was constructed, so the joinery techniques on it. And the really cool thing with this lock is that, so the first book and then that other lock I just went over, the 2-chamber, they're both a rivet body construction. But the really cool thing about the half-heart padlock is that it's forge brazed, and I go really deep into explaining that process. And along with this, we're also going to get into fabricated keys. So you'll have the single piece forged key, forged and filed, and then we have a fabricated and forged brazed key. So this key is made out of, I believe, 3 different pieces, and it's brazed in the forge. And this will be brazed a little bit differently than the padlock. So the padlock is going to be brazed in the forge as well, but it's a really, really cool technique that I experimented with a lot. I did a ton of research. As far as I can tell, my book is going to have the most in-depth explanation and look at the forge brazing process, at least in English, that I'm aware of. Some people are somewhat familiar with this process, but I feel like not a lot of people in America are. It is a process they still teach in some places in Europe, especially Sweden, it seems like. And I did find some Swedish sources that do talk about this process, but I feel like I went really in depth with taking what I found from them, what I found historically, and then on top of all of that, I took all my own personal, my notes that I discovered when I was trying to work through the process, trying to figure out how to do the process. I guess trying to figure out how to do the process for myself. I talk about different types of materials you can use. But anyways, the process is really cool. What you do is you coat the lock in this clay covering. It's a little more in depth than that. There's a lot that goes into it. You mix stuff into the clay, but you coat the clay in this, or the lock in this clay mixture, and you fire this whole thing in the forge. And again, I go through the whole process real in depth. And what happens is, if you do it successfully, you end up with a essentially a plated padlock, and so that brass is able to seep into all the seams. You don't have to worry about burning up your little thin sheet metal lock body, and then you can clean it all up and have a nice forge brazed lock. Again, that's a super cool process. I really like this technique. It was a lot of fun researching it, and like I said, going through historical information, contemporary smiths, and just finding any sort of documentation on this process, as well as me adding my own notes and thoughts and stuff, because there are some really good historic documents that explain this process. But what I tend to find with a lot of historical documents is that they give you kind of part of the process. They don't necessarily explain everything in the detail that I would like. Like, I feel like once I start applying what they're talking about, I'm finding that there are a few things I don't know. Like, maybe they didn't explain enough. So I really go through and try to figure those things out for you guys. And so I've got a whole chapter just on that alone. Now the book is about, it's a little over twice as thick as the first book, so a lot more information in here. Again, it's the same layout. You're probably gonna be real familiar. I got the patterns in the back, and then just lots of photos and stuff to kind of supplement. Pictures of the process of how to make the pattern locks in this book, as well as pictures of antique locks and drawings and stuff to help supplement the information and explain what it is that I'm talking about. So again, super excited to get this out to you guys. I've been working on it for a really long time. Yeah, just I'm really happy with what I was able to do with it, the information I was able to find. I think you guys will really enjoy it, especially if you like the first book. And like I said, this just kind of ups the difficulty level. So if you enjoyed the first book and you're looking to kind of take the next step in figuring out either how to make things a little more complex, or just to expand your skills within traditional locksmithing. So now you have some of the riveted construction techniques, as well as being able to join the forge brazing. And from there, it's just, I think, for the most part, it's just going to be kind of embellishments and decoration and the detail. So the construction techniques are just going to compound. So once you know how to forge braze, you can forge braze more intricate things. Or, you know, once you have the understanding of how to kind of locate pieces and rivet them together, you can just expand that into getting more detail, more complex locks. So the two books together, they kind of give you a lot of the good basic information to set you up, and then from there you just kind of take off and get into more intricate things. So I hope you guys are really excited and interested in this book. Like I said, it's if you're watching this video, it's available for pre-sale right now. So head on over to my website. Be sure to pick up yourself a copy of the book. Yeah, thank you. Bye.